In tonight's news edition, the Regent opens the new expansion at the King Hussein Airport in Aqaba. Jordan and India express willingness to further bolster economic ties. And the Egyptian military deploys armored vehicles near the presidential palace and outside the state broadcasting headquarters after an ultimatum for compromise expires. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein the Regent inaugurated the new expansion of the arrival terminal at King Hussein International Airport in Aqaba. The project is meant to keep pace with developments in the tourism and economic sectors in the Aqaba Special Economic Zone. The expansion aims at boosting competitiveness of the airport in the region to serve the economic, tourism, and investment sectors by improving the efficiency of procedures for passengers, which will not exceed more than 25 minutes. The Regent toured the new expansion's facilities and was briefed by Chief Commissioner of the Aqaba Special Economic Zone Authority, Kamel Mahadin. Mahadin said the airport is one of Jordan's air gates and completes the transportation system in the southern port city and business hub. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour and visiting Indian Minister of State for Foreign Affairs E. Ahmed discussed prospects for cementing Jordanian-Indian ties in addition to development in the Middle East. Mansour referred to the historic ties between Jordan and India, noting that the kingdom is interested in further cementing cooperation, mainly in trade fields. Mansour briefed the Indian minister on Jordan's stance on the Palestinian issue and the Syrian crisis. He said the kingdom backed any efforts to arrive at a just solution to the Palestinian issue based on the two-state solution and a political solution to the Syrian crisis to end the bloodshed in the country. The Indian minister said his country is interested in enhanced relations with Jordan, commending the kingdom's role to bring about regional peace and stability. Foreign Minister Nasser Judeh and the Indian minister also held talks and underscored the two countries' desire to bolster ties. Judeh stressed a speedy political solution in Syria involving all Syrians to end the bloodshed and safeguard the country's security and territorial integrity. The Indian minister hailed Jordan's efforts to bring about peace and stability in the region.
During my discussion with the foreign minister here, we have reviewed our relationship, our economic relationship, our political relationship, our strategic relationship, and the very near future, the foreign minister of Jordan will be visiting India to continue this process of discussion of the matters of common interest.
The Prime Minister also welcomed Chairman of the Assembly of Kosovo, Jacob Krasniqi, along with an accompanying delegation currently on a visit to the kingdom. Mansour said Jordan is keen to strengthen ties with the Republic of Kosovo and expand cooperation in various fields. He briefed the Kosovo team on the reform being implemented by Jordan, noting that the kingdom owed its success to its ability to preserve security and stability in a turbulent region. Krasniqi expressed his country's appreciation of Jordan's support to Kosovo, as the kingdom was one of the first countries to recognize the province's independence in 2009, noting Jordan's participation in the UN peacekeeping mission in his country. He said Kosovo was interested in bolstering relations with Jordan in economic and other fields. Prime Minister Mansour also met Deputy Prime Minister of the People's Democratic Republic of Laos, Somsavat Lengsavad, and an accompanying delegation. They talked about ways to bolster ties between Jordan and the Southeast Asian nation, in addition to regional developments, especially the Palestinian issue and the Syrian crisis. Mansour briefed the delegation on Jordan's achievements in various fields, noting that the kingdom considers its security, stability, and human resources as its real wealth. The Laotian Deputy Premier expressed his country's interest in boosting trade and tourism cooperation, benefiting from Jordan's expertise in potash exports and the possibility of exporting rice to Jordan. Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources Malik Kabariti said Jordan eyes sustainable energy in the total energy mix, especially for electricity generation. He said during the opening of the Middle East and North Africa Renewable Energy Conference that reliance on sustainable energy would ease the energy crisis in the kingdom. Kabariti told the conference titled Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency and Regional Cooperation that the cost of imported energy last year was estimated at 4.6 billion Jordanian dinars, or 20% of GDP. The figure, he added, had put additional strains on the state budget and the national economy as a whole. He said Jordan's energy strategy seeks to diversify energy sources and minimize reliance on imported energy, noting that Jordan had set the location for renewable energy projects planned until 2020, including wind and solar energy for electricity generation. The conference, organized by Energy Charter Treaty of the European Commission, aims to reduce the energy crisis in the kingdom.
I think this is a very unique event to have the conference today in Amman. For us, for the energy charter process, Jordan is a very important country, which is a front runner of the cooperation with the whole Middle East and North African region. And we feel that, that Jordan is going through the period when there is reassessing, rethinking the whole energy investments and the key problems related to the energy supplies in this country, putting the energy on the top of the political agenda.
We find this meeting is very good, informative, also stimulating for the discussion. We see a very good discussion on promoting renewable energy and energy efficiency in the region. We see that the MENA region has huge potential for developing renewable energy as well as energy efficiency. So we're looking forward to continue our participation in this meeting.
The government has announced a crackdown on campus violence after a spike in deadly riots in recent months. Mu'ta University said today was expelling 7 students and suspending 9 others for taking part in a brawl and riot in the past weeks, which saw university property being vandalized. A Mu'ta University statement said that a disciplinary body was continuing an investigation into the violence and more students will be expelled. It vowed to fully enforce laws and regulations to maintain the reputation of Mu'ta University, one of the kingdom's 8 state universities. And we will soon be getting a live broadcast of the next news item about the Egyptian presidency that said a coalition government should be part of a solution to the country's political standoff. But the presidency appeared to offer no compromises as a deadline set by the army for a power-sharing agreement elapsed. A statement reiterated that President Mohamed Morsi held opposition parties responsible for obstructing a political initiative that would also set up a panel to prepare amendments to the constitutional passed into law last December. The Egyptian army erected barbed wire and barriers around the barracks where Morsi was working and deployed armored vehicles and troops to prevent his supporters from marching from a nearby rally to his palace. Hala Dababne has an update.
The situation is unfolding rapidly in Egypt after a deadline for a political deal passed with no mediated solution in sight. An activist group that sparked the huge protests against President Mohamed Morsi has called on the military to arrest the president on charges of inciting civil war. The Tamarrud or rebel movement claimed to have collected 22 million signatures to call for Morsi to step down, lending momentum to large-scale demonstrations that have led the army to issue their ultimatum. They called on protesters to gather outside the Egyptian Army's Republican Guard headquarters to urge the soldiers to arrest Morsi. Supporters of the president have staged large demonstrations to try and prevent what they say is an attempt by the military and members of the ousted Mubarak regime to subvert the country's democratic transition. Morsi made a defiant speech a day earlier in which he offered concessions, but said he would sacrifice his life to protect the legitimacy of his office.
We now have a reference. We now have legitimacy. With our own will an elected president, a constitution voted by the people, and we are working according to this legitimacy. This legitimacy is the only thing that will guarantee us all, if we respect it, that there will not be hostilities between us.
Security sources said 2 armored vehicles took up position outside state broadcasting headquarters on the Nile River bank, and most staff were evacuated from the building. According to state news agency MENA, civil servants were occupying the cabinet office and would not let Morsi-appointed Prime Minister Hisham Qandil enter the building. The Muslim Brotherhood says the military's move is part of a planned coup and that supporters are willing to risk their lives to prevent the military from taking over.
I think the military coup is indeed underway. I think that we are seeing many signs of that at the moment. And I don't think that the Egyptian people will tolerate another resurface of the old regime under any banner.
The military high command said the army was ready to die to defend Egypt's people against what it called terrorists and fools. At least 16 people, mostly supporters of Morsi, were killed and about 200 wounded in overnight clashes in Cairo. State television reported that gunmen opened fire on pro-Morsi demonstrators at Cairo University campus. The Muslim Brotherhood accused uniformed police of the shooting. World nations have expressed concern over the deteriorating situation in Egypt. The U.S. State Department said the situation remained fluid and cannot confirm whether a military coup was underway. Britain urged the Egyptian president to respond to mass opposition demonstrations and end the violence.
That yes, he has a democratic mandate and we respect that, but democracy also means ensuring that everyone has a voice and that leaders have a responsibility to represent all Egyptians and show they are responsive to their concerns.
As the ultimatum expired, there was no immediate word from the armed forces and no fixed time had been set for a statement. Hala Dababne for the news at 10.
Over to Syria, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon reiterated his call for the two sides of the conflict to avoid civilians. Battles continued across the country with no apparent advances by any of the warring sides. Rebel gunmen were fighting Syrian government forces in Khan al-Asal, a suburb of the northern city of Aleppo. Government forces were also shelling the district of Zabadani and Qaboon near the capital, Damascus. Plumes of smoke rose into the sky in what appeared to be the aftermath of shelling. A series of deadly attacks hit cities across Iraq, killing 14 people and wounding 3. In northern Baghdad, 8 people were killed when 2 car bombs hit one of its districts. Outside Baghdad, a bomb blast near a funeral tent in the city of Baquba killed 6 people. In the south, a car bomb in Amara province killed 4 people, and in the city of Basra, 3 blasts hit a hotel frequented by foreigners working in the oil industry, wounding 3 guards. More than 40 people were killed in a wave of attacks yesterday. The sustained campaign of attacks since the start of the year has increased fears of wider conflict in a country where ethnic Kurds, Shiites, and Sunni Muslims have yet to find a stable power-sharing compromise. Bolivia accused Austria of kidnapping its president, Evo Morales, after authorities searched his plane during a stopover in Vienna. Austrian authorities suspected Morales was taking fugitive U.S. intelligence analyst Edward Snowden to Latin America. A senior Bolivian diplomat said the Austrians acted at the bidding of the United States, which has been trying to get its hands on Snowden since he revealed details of its secret surveillance programs last month. The Bolivian plane bringing Morales home from an energy conference in Moscow was stranded at Vienna airport for several hours after Portugal and France refused to allow it to fly through their airspace. The search found that Snowden was not on board the plane, eventually left Vienna. Snowden is believed to be still in the transit area of a Moscow airport, where he has been trying since June 23 to find a country that will offer him refuge from prosecution in the United States on espionage charges. Rescue operations are continuing in Indonesia as the death toll from an earthquake that hit Aceh province rises to 24. The quake, with magnitude of 6.2, had struck the northern tip of Indonesia's Sumatra island. The National Disaster and Mitigation Agency said at least 24 died, 2 were missing, and 249 were injured. The Army has been called in to help with the rescue efforts. Authorities said the quake damaged more than 1,500 buildings and houses and also cut communications, which was hindering operations. Indonesia suffered from frequent earthquakes as it lies on an area of intense seismic activity. The government announced it is cutting work hours at government offices during the holy month of Ramadan, which begins next week. Prime Minister Abdullah Ansur said work days at all ministries and public departments will start at 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock. The statement exempted certain entities which would set their own work schedules, urging staff at all departments to observe the sanctity of the holy month. Though very little is happening on the football fields, major teams are still working hard at recruiting new players. Isco signed up with Real Madrid, their first recruitment since Carlo Ancelotti took over as coach. Isco hopes joining the 9-time European champions would boost his chances of making the Spain squad for next year's World Cup finals. The talented midfielder was voted by coaches as the revelation player of La Liga 2 years ago, but will have to fight for a place in Real's starting line. The under-21 player completed a medical and signed a 5-year contract worth some 30 million euros. Meanwhile, Champions League and Bundesliga winners Bayern Munich unveiled midfielder Mario Götze as their newest member at a news conference. This season, Bayern will be led by former Barcelona coach Pep Guardiola, who said the players are looking forward to working with the Spaniard. Götze's contract is reported to be worth 37 million euros. Ferrari duo Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa are poised to take advantage of a young driver's test later this month as Formula One teams attempt to address the tire problems which blighted last week's British Grand Prix. A spat of punctures put drivers in danger and left manufacturer Pirelli under pressure to improve their tires. On Sunday, Alonso battled to third place after starting in 9th, while Massa claimed 6th after qualifying in 11th. And finally, a quick look at the weather. Pleasant conditions tonight in most parts of the kingdom with light to moderate winds. Tomorrow, normal summer conditions in hilly areas and relatively hot in other regions with moderate winds picking up at times. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a fair night and hot tomorrow with moderate winds picking up at times and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Regent opens the new expansion at the King Hussein Airport in Aqaba. Jordan and India expressed willingness to further bolster economic ties. And the Egyptian military deploys armored vehicles near the presidential palace and outside the state broadcasting headquarters after an ultimatum for compromise expires. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.